Would you accept $10,000 from Vincent Price to stay overnight with him in a haunted house, in a completely non-sexual way, I should add? Personally, I would pay for the privilege. I mean, come on, it's Vincent Price. Hi guys, so I did say after my review of The Pit and the Pendulum that I was going to make an effort to watch more Vincent Price movies, and here is my evidence of that. There will be spoilers today, but I will at least refrain from giving away the film's biggest secret of all. The title for this, incidentally, is not to be confused with the title of the recent Netflix series, The Haunting of Hill House. They do sound very similar, so if I say them side by side, you'll see what I mean. The Haunting of Hill House, The House on Haunted Hill. The Haunting of Hill House, The House on Haunted Hill. Similar but different, but it's a bit of a tongue twister if you try and say both of them side by side really fast. I do think the title of this film is the inferior title of the two, though. It sort of implies that the hill itself is haunted rather than the house, but that's not actually the case. 99% of this film does take place indoors. There's no hauntings going on outside or any other form of skullduggery. So the plot for this is absolutely juicy. You've got this character called Frederick, played by Vincent Price, who invites 5 strangers to stay overnight with him and his wife in this supposedly haunted house. He doesn't own this place, does Frederick. He's just renting it because he's heard that it's haunted. I've got to say, though, it doesn't look like your traditional haunted house from the outside. You'd think for a movie like this, they would have used a really gothic-looking manor with a bat flying off the top of the roof, and there'd be high iron railings and a couple of stone gargoyles either side of that. But no, what they've gone for is just odd. And the best way I can describe it is that it looks like a government tax office building in Egypt. It's really weird. So the question you've got to ask yourself is, given that Frederick is apparently willing to spend all this money just to get these people together for the night, is this genuinely going to be a supernatural horror film, or is there something else going on? And I can reveal now that this is more of a human threat movie than a supernatural film, which is really strange given that we have the word haunted in the title. But Frederick is not necessarily the human threat, and I'm not going to say anything else about the actual plot. I'll leave that for you to discover. So how this plays out is you've got a villain essentially scaring all the other characters throughout the course of the night for reasons I'm not going to reveal, using various props and other methods. If you've ever been to an extreme haunted house, or if you've just seen the film Hell Night with Linda Blair, you'll know what to expect. But even though throughout the film you as a viewer start to get suspicious that you're not actually seeing the work of ghosts, it's still a very atmospheric film. I was absolutely engaged in this all the way through and really on the edge of my seat. There's one moment, though, where I fail to see how a human being could have pulled off this particular scare. So there's a moment where a villain appears to be hovering outside of a bedroom window to scare a woman inside the bedroom. But we know that there's a harness behind this person, or at least we find this out later on in the movie. Now, the person appearing to be hovering sends a rope through the window, and this rope seems to slither by itself across the floor. It wraps itself around the foot of the victim. For some reason, she just accepts this. She doesn't try to shake it off or anything. I guess she's frozen in fear, maybe. But just when you think the rope is going to yank this woman off her feet, it then decides to just retract itself. It unwinds, comes off the foot, goes back across the carpet, out through the window. And I thought to myself, okay, how is the person on the harness making the rope behave like this? It's impossible, unless there's some kind of magic involved, something supernatural. And my only thought was maybe this is some kind of Egyptian rope trick, given that earlier I was theorising that the film might be set in Egypt because of what the house looks like from the outside, but I don't think it is set in Egypt. I think this film is set either in England or America, I'm not sure. There are a few other illogical things about the film, even though I was enjoying it. So even though I could believe that a bunch of people would accept being in an unknown house for the night if they were offered $10,000, because, you know, the modern day people are People are desperate for that kind of cash, aren't they? They'll try anything generally. Vincent Price's Frederick character, though, he brings out some party favours, because it's meant to be a party, this occasion, even though it doesn't feel like that. He brings out these party favours in the form of 5 small coffins, and inside each coffin is a handgun. So he starts handing out these handguns, saying, "Oh, you might need these to protect yourselves tonight," which makes no sense, because he's been telling them all this is a haunted house experience or something. So what good are a bunch of guns going to do? Now, if this was real life, I think people would be freaking out a bit at this point. This might be too much, live ammunition being passed around, and that's just normal. In the UK, I think people definitely would be freaking out, because we don't have guns in this country. Maybe in America, guns are a bit more of a normal sight. But these are not just any old people off the street, these characters. They're respectable middle-class people, like psychiatrists and stuff, people you wouldn't think would ever really touch firearms, but not a single one of them freaks out. They all take these handguns like, "Oh yeah, well, I'll take this, no problem." And as soon as this happened, though, I thought to myself, oh, I know what's going to happen here. They're going to be running around in the dark, shots will go off, and they'll end up killing each other or something. I was amazed, actually, when that didn't happen at least once. There's also this thing where... So a lot of the time in movies like this, characters have to split off in order for the horror to happen. And I just think, in real life, people with some experience of watching movies like this would stand up and say, "Look, we've all just got to huddle in the same room, and then a serial killer can't get us, or the ghost can't get us, or whatever." In this film, that doesn't happen. A lot of the characters do branch off and run around by themselves or in pairs. But the writer does at least seem to go down that avenue of thought, because at one point, he or she has one of the characters say, "Well, why don't we survive this difficult situation why don't we all go in our own bedrooms, lock the doors, and if anybody comes into our rooms, we'll know that that's the villain and we can shoot them." And I thought to myself, okay, that could work. I'm pretty sure I've seen that attempted in a horror film before, and it generally doesn't work, because you just get one character who hears a noise from out in the corridor or something, they go out to investigate, and then you've got another victim already. Or maybe 2 lovers just have to break the rules because they know each other's not the killer, kind of thing. But at least something reasonably sensible was tried. But personally, if I was in that situation, I would just be suggesting that everybody just stays in the same room and all the handguns just get placed into a bin in the middle of the room. But you know what? Vincent Price is a very persuasive person, I guess. Speaking of Mr. Price, he is absolutely the standout performance in this, just as he was when I watched The Pit and the Pendulum a few weeks ago. 2 very different films, but in both of them, Price is kind of doing a similar role in that he's playing a host greeting other people to the house that he's occupying, and he's got a bit of a twinkle in his eye. He's acting like, say, the ringmaster for the film. He acts like he knows more than he's letting on, but nobody in the House on Haunted Hill really comes close to his performance. The woman I've got in the thumbnail, she plays one of the main parts, and the reason why I've put her there instead of Price is just as a kind of little tribute, because when I went on Wiki after this film to look up what the actors did in the rest of their careers, I discovered, sadly, that this particular woman died like a couple of years after making this. She was only 36, very, very tragic death, clearly. I also want to talk a little bit about the cellar in this film, because out of all the rooms in the house, this is the room that gave me the most pleasure. So there's like a trapdoor down there that lifts up like this, and we find out through one of the characters who clearly knows his history that the previous owner of the house killed his wife so he basically pushed her into this vat of acid that he's set up in the cellar. Really complicated way to kill your wife. I did wonder though, so clearly the police found out about this murder, hence how the story managed to get out. And we know it's a real story because we can see the vat of acid with our own eyes still there in this film. But why wouldn't the police have emptied this vat of acid? Why would they have just left it there for the next owners of the house to come along and potentially fall in? What if some kids had broken in and just died by acid because the acid had been left there? Just a fun little detail. There's also a scene where a skeleton seems to rise up and go on the attack and try to scare somebody, again in the cellar. And I thought to myself at this moment, okay, have we finally gone into the supernatural now with this film, or is it going to turn out that there's a villain off to the side with some, using it as like a puppet on a string sort of thing? And that's what turns out to be the case. It's really funny that this skeleton is just made to move around in a silly way, and this character really reacts totally scared, to the point where this person actually backs into the vat of acid. Of course they do. But it's not like the skeleton is made up to really grimy and scary. It's not like something you might see in Return of the Living Dead. It's really clean, as if it's a prop that's just been plucked from the corner of a doctor's office or something. I'm sure that Sam Raimi must have watched this film before he went on to make the Evil Dead film. So we've got a cellar, which is ground zero, really, for most of the horror in the film. You've got a trapdoor that opens up like that, and there's real horror inside that trapdoor. Then you've got a dancing skeleton / corpse, which I believe happened in Evil Dead 2 maybe. And also there's just a sense of comedy about all this. There's a sense of fun to it. There's stuff in this film that really tickles you, just like it does when you're watching an Evil Dead film. Overall, very impressed with this. It strikes a very good balance between just having weird, sort of slightly funny things and also having a really significant intimidation factor. I was watching this on the edge of my seat, really enjoying it. And my overall impression is that it's a damn good film for an old film. Now, normally this is the point of the video where I would show you what copy of the film I own, but I don't actually own a copy of The Haunting of Hill House. Sorry, I mean The House on Haunted Hill. I was bound to do that today at some point. I watched this through my Amazon subscription, but you don't actually need an Amazon subscription to watch this because this is a film in the public domain. You can watch it for free on YouTube, so no excuses. If you've made it this far in the review and you've not seen this film, you might as well watch it. It's free. It's there to watch on YouTube. It's only about 80 minutes long, so go and do it. Right, let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score I'm going to give this film. 1, 2, 3, 3.5 bloody axes out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's always a pleasure to discover hidden gems from the really old days back in the 50s, 60s and so forth. So yeah, give this a try. I think you'll really enjoy it. I'll be back with another review very, very soon. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.